Okay, imagine this. You're suddenly tasked with figuring out exactly how a big, complex factory uses energy. Not just, the big, obvious stuff, but all the details, the efficiencies, where things might be going wrong.
It's a huge tap, like finding needles in a haystack almost.
Exactly. And that's what these deep dives are all about, giving you that shortcut, getting straight to the important insights without drowning you in data.
Cutting through the noise.
Right. So today, we're diving into an internal audit report. It's focused on energy management, specifically looking at the ISO 50001.2018 standard.
Ah, yes, the international benchmark for energy management systems. A lot of our listeners will know this one well. It's all about that continuous improvement cycle.
Precisely. And the company. It's Islamabad Cooking Oil down in the industrial zone in Islamabad, Pakistan. Their system covers, well, pretty much everything. Cooking oil production, refining, packaging, distribution, the whole lot.
A comprehensive scope, definitely.
So our mission today is to kind of pull back the curtain, see how a real company stacks up against these global standards. What works, what doesn't. What can we learn about making energy efficiency actually happen on the ground?
It's like a peek behind the scenes, isn't it? Seeing the theory meet reality.
Let's get into it. So first off, this ISO 50001 standard. Why would a company like Islamabad Cooking Oil even bother? What's the point?
Well, it's much more than just a certificate for the wall. It's a structured way, a system, for managing energy performance day in, day out. It helps companies find savings, reduce their carbon footprint, and just generally get smarter about how they use energy.
So it's a framework.
Exactly. And for this audit, the goals were really clear. First, check if they're actually following the standard conformity. Second, see if their system is actually working effectiveness. And third, crucially, find ways they could do even better identify those opportunities for improvement.
Okay, and this wasn't just theory. It was a specific audit, right? A stage 2 simulation.
That's right. It happened on a specific date, July 25th, 2025, and there were real auditors involved. Zubair Ahmed was the lead auditor, and Fatima Shah was the internal auditor.
Got it. Real people, real process.
Absolutely. And they didn't just look at one part of the factory. To get that full picture, they audited several key departments.
Which ones?
Let's see. Utilities, maintenance, production, QHSE, that's quality, health, safety, environment, and even the admin department.
So pretty much covering all the key areas that touch energy use.
Exactly. It gives you that holistic view. Energy management isn't just an engineering thing. It touches everything.
Okay, so we've got the setup, the standard, the company, the audit process. Now for the interesting part, where did they actually do well? Where did Islamabad Cooking Oil really hit the mark?
Yeah, let's start with the positives. They definitely had some strong points. For example, under clauses 4.1 to 4.3, the context and scope stuff, they were quite clear. They had properly defined the scope of their energy management system, focusing on production and packaging, and they documented all those internal and external issues that can affect energy use. That's a solid foundation.
Right, getting the basics down. What else?
Well, in terms of operational control, Clause 8.1, they had standard operating procedures, SOPs, for their main energy-using processes. That's good practice.
SOPs are key.
Definitely. And they'd already done some practical things, like installing energy-efficient lighting. Plus, for monitoring and analysis, Clause 9.1, they had energy meters installed, and they were logging data daily.
Daily logs, okay. That's a start.
It is. And their internal audit process, Clause 9.2, seemed to be functioning audits were scheduled and done. Finally, under support, Clauses 7.2 to 7.5, things like document control and training records were generally in order.
So a decent baseline. They have the structure, the procedures, some monitoring.
Yes, the building blocks seem to be there.
Okay, but as always, the real learning often comes from the challenges, right? Where did the system kind of stumble? Let's get into the nonconformities, the NCs, and maybe the observations too.
Right. And this is where you see the gap between having a system on paper and making it live and breathe in the organization.
Tell me more.
Well, one area was around leadership and communication. For instance, top management, while supportive, apparently wasn't quite up to speed on the latest energy key performance indicator updates.
Okay. A bit of disconnect.
A bit, and maybe more significantly, the company's energy policy. It existed, it was documented, but it hadn't actually been communicated down to the floor operators.
So the people actually running the machines didn't necessarily know the company's energy goals or policy.
Seems like it. That was flagged as a minor nonconformity, NC001. That's a classic issue, you know? Great policy, but it doesn't reach the front line.
Yeah, the last mile problem, as they say.
Exactly. Then there were issues related to data monitoring and especially the analysis part. This was a recurring theme.
Okay, like what specifically?
For one, the energy logs for the chillers were incomplete for May and June. That was an observation, OBS 001.
The classic incomplete logbook. Always trips people up.
Agrees. It really does. Small thing, big impact. Because, linked to that, while they had defined energy performance indicators, or NPIs, the targets for the second quarter of 2025 hadn't been updated. That's NC 002.
So they had indicators, but no current targets to aim for.
Pretty much. And it gets worse. Even though they're logging data daily, they weren't actually analyzing energy performance against their baseline every month. That was NC 003.
Wow. So data collection without the crucial analysis step.
Seems that way. Even their management review meetings, which were happening, weren't properly evaluating the trends in those NPIs. Another nonconformity, NC 004.
So the review meetings missed the key energy performance discussion.
Correct. And this lack of monitoring had real consequences. They had an objective to cut boiler fuel use by 8%, but they missed it simply because the monitoring wasn't really happening effectively.
Ouch. Okay, what else? Any operational or training issues?
Yes, a couple of things stood out. New maintenance staff weren't aware of the EnMS procedures, which is OBS 002. You can see how that might lead to inefficiencies or mistakes.
Sure, if the maintenance crew doesn't know the energy-saving protocols.
Right. And a big opportunity for improvement, OFI 001, was that they didn't have a documented procedure for shutting down equipment during idle times.
Really? Just letting things run when not needed? That sounds like low-hanging fruit for savings.
Absolutely. A huge potential saving just sitting there, likely untapped, because there wasn't a formal process.
Okay, so these findings, communication gaps, data analysis issues, lack of monitoring, some training and procedure weaknesses. How did this translate into their actual energy numbers for Q2 2025?
Yeah.
Did the performance reflect these problems?
It really did. The numbers tell a story that lines up perfectly with the audit findings. Looking at that Q2 2025 snapshot.
Yeah.
Well, take electricity use per ton of oil. Their target was 120 kilowatt hours. The actual
133.
So missed the target, quite a bit over. Yes. And then boiler fuel natural gas in this case. The target was 22 cubic meters per hour. Actual usage was 24.5.
Another miss. Okay. Any good news in the numbers?
There was one, compressor load time. The target was to keep it under 75%, and they managed 69%.
Ah, so they achieved that one. Interesting. One win, two significant misses.
Precisely. It shows maybe where their focus had been effective, perhaps on the compressors, but the overall picture, especially for electricity and gas, reflected those monitoring and analysis weaknesses we talked about.
Right, it suggests maybe an uneven focus, or that the systems weren't robust enough across the board.
I think that's a fair assessment. The compressor success shows potential, but the misses highlight the impact of the identified gaps.
So given all this, the good, the bad, the numbers, what do the auditors actually recommend? How could Islamabad cooking oil get back on track?
Well, they didn't just point fingers, they offered concrete steps. For the nonconformities, they laid out specific corrective actions.
Like what? For the communication issue, for example.
Yeah, for NC 001, the policy communication failure, the fix was pretty direct. Develop and run awareness sessions specifically for the floor operators. Get the message out there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And for the data issues, the outdated targets and lack of analysis.
For the outdated targets, NC 002, they suggested automating the NMPI tracking dashboard. Move away from manual updates, make it more reliable.
Smart. Use technology.
Exactly. For the lack of monthly analysis, NC 003, the recommendation was to assign a dedicated person, an EnMS performance analyst, someone whose job it is to crunch those numbers.
Resource allocation, basically. Give someone ownership.
Right. And for the management review meetings missing the energy trends, in C004, they advised revising the meeting format to specifically include evaluating those NMPI trends. Build it into the process.
Okay, those sound like solid fixes for the NCs. What are the opportunities for improvement, the OFIs?
Those are really practical, too. That big one, OFI 001, about equipment idling. The recommendation was simple. Create and implement an energy shutdown procedure for idle times.
Formalize the process.
Yes. Another good one, OFI 002, was to put up visual displays of EnMS KPIs in break rooms and production areas. Make the targets and performance visible to everyone.
Boost awareness. Keep it top of mind.
And there was a more technical suggestion, too, OFI 003. Look into installing heat recovery systems on the exhaust stacks in the refinery, capturing waste heat.
Potential for bigger capital-based savings there.
Definitely. But there was one more observation, OBS003, that's worth mentioning.
Oh.
It noted that some nonconformities and actions from previous audits were still open or waiting for verification.
Ah, so a potential issue with follow-through.
It suggests that, yes, a need for better tracking and closing out of actions once they're identified. Continuous improvement requires closing the loop.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. If you had to summarize this whole deep dive into the Islamabad cooking oil audit, what's the main takeaway?
Well, the auditor's conclusion sums it up nicely, I think. They acknowledge the progress. The company has set up the basics of an ISO 5001 system. The foundation is there.
Controls, documentation.
Right. But the real work, the challenge now, is in the ongoing stuff. Better data analysis, much clearer internal communication, especially to the shop floor, and actually using those regular target reviews to drive better performance.
So the system exists, but it needs to be actively managed and used more effectively.
Exactly. Management commitment seems to be there in principle, but it needs to translate into more consistent oversight, analysis, and action based on the data.
And thinking about our listeners,
Yeah.
why should someone tuning in care about the specifics of an energy audit at a cooking oil plant in Pakistan? What's the bigger lesson here?
That's a great question, because it's not really just about cooking oil or Pakistan. It's a universal story. It shows that having a system, even a good one like ISO 5001, isn't a magic bullet.
It's not set it and forget it.
Not at all. Real effectiveness, real improvement, whether it's energy, quality, safety, whatever, comes from that constant cycle. Monitor the data, analyze the data, communicate clearly, and then, crucially, act on what you learn. That applies everywhere.
So it's a lesson in execution, really, not just plan.
Precisely. The details matter. The follow-through matters.
Which leaves us with the final thought, maybe. If a company with a formal system and presumably good intentions can get tripped up by things like incomplete logs or policies stuck in binders, what seemingly small details might we be overlooking in our own work, our own projects that are holding back bigger improvements?
That's definitely some food for thought. Where are our own incomplete logs or uncommunicated policies?
Something to chew on until our next deep dive.